I can't help but put a lot of thought into how I use my iPhone, the apps I install, the settings I change, and the accessories I use with it. So today I'm going to show you what's on my iPhone 15 Pro. Let's start with my lock screen. I actually keep it pretty basic. Right now it's on Do Not Disturb, but I actually don't really use focus modes a lot. Basically, I'll just alternate changing a different family photo whenever I've got a nice new one. And I think this option of the blurry home screen is one of the smartest things they did, so I don't need to choose two images. Now that we've had widgets customizable here for a while now, the only ones that I really go back to are the weather and having an alternate time zone. Right now I'm at home, so it's set to Toronto, but when we're traveling, I'll set this to the home time so I know what time it is at home. That's all I really do on my home screen. But a huge change with the iPhone 15 Pro is the action button on the side. So let's talk about my experience with it so far. If you haven't already played with the action button, you're going to find it in settings and has this really intense skeuomorphic design attached to it that I love. So I thought it'd be really obvious that the default I would set is the camera app because I mean, I'm a photographer. Like I take a lot of photos, I take a lot of videos, so launching it made sense. What I mentioned in my review is that I still ended up finding it easier to launch from the small button in the corner because it's just a little harder to reach up to the top of the phone like that. So it's a great idea in theory, but I've not remembered to use it very often. So I still end up launching the camera the old-fashioned way. So instead, I've gone in and created a shortcut. Now, you can go really deep with your shortcuts. I've seen other people do tutorials about like launching menus, which I think is really interesting and smart. The reason I haven't wanted to build a complicated shortcut is the more thought process I have to go to every time I launch it, the less often I'm gonna launch it. So all I did was set up a shortcut to launch the Blackmagic camera app. And this is a good segue into apps because I think Blackmagic Camera and apps like it have suddenly become very important this year with the 15 Pro specifically, and that's because of the ability to record Apple Log in ProRes. Now, if you go into the default camera app, you can turn ProRes on. Like this is how I've been using it the first few days. It does a great job, but it shoots in ProRes HQ, which is a huge format. Very professional. You'll never have any problems with image quality, but it's a little too big for what I'm doing with my iPhone. So the little bit of magic in the Blackmagic Camera app is you can go into codec and switch to ProRes 422 LT. This is a lot smaller than ProRes 422 HQ, but maintains more than enough image quality for most use cases on the phone. And along with that, it brings a bunch of professional standard video features like being able to lock in the ISO, white balance, shutter speed, all of that stuff. And while you're shooting ProRes, you can turn on a LUT to monitor so that it's not completely flat while you're recording your video. And if you haven't used LUTs before, they're really easy to apply in any video editing software on your desktop. I created a set that transformed the Apple Log to regular contrast, and then you can also add a more filmic cinematic look. There's a link in the description if you want to check them out. I've made a really in-depth video all about filmmaking on your iPhone, so you can check that one out, but I do need to update that for the iPhone 15 Pro, so stay tuned for that video. Now let's take a second to talk about what's actually on my phone. So this is the modern leather case from Nomad. They sponsored this video, talk more about them in a second, but it's really nice. As you know, Apple discontinued their leather cases this year, so this is a great alternative. Other key accessories, well, AirPods Pro. When they updated them to Generation 2, I said you should probably wait for USB-C, and here they are. I'm so glad I waited. If you upgraded earlier in the year, it's probably kind of frustrating because now you have one lightning cable kicking around for AirPods. But if you haven't updated for a while, I'm just here to say getting all USB-C is amazing. Like the more you can be all in, the better. But you already know that. Okay, some more USB-C things. Adapters, you can do a lot out of this USB-C port. Like I was kind of expecting them to have handicapped it a little bit, but if you have the right adapter, like this Belkin, you can run like HDMI monitors, card readers that you can record to CF Express or SD cards, or USB-C drives. And then there's my favorite mic of the year. It just came out recently, but the Rode Wireless Pro. And for this setup, like rigging up an iPhone into a full video camera, I don't feel like I have the rig ready yet. Like you can see, it's kind of a mess on my desk right now. I'm gonna work on something. Hopefully soon I can show you how I would actually set this all up. But what I wanted to show you with the setup is that the secret ingredient is having power pass through in this USB splitter. Because once you've got all these things plugged in, they are drawing power. Like all of them need a different amount of power, and your phone only has so big of a battery in it. So you can just run a USB-C cable out to a wall or a battery bank or whatever it is, and now you've got enough power to run this whole setup. I mean, I'm really just setting this all up as a preview of what's going to be so exciting later in the year. But for now, just be aware, like supplying power can let you do crazy things with your iPhone. And while I've got all of this out, let's talk a bit more about the sponsor of this video, Nomad. All of their accessories here are extremely eye-catching because they are beautifully designed and very well made. So starting with their modern leather case, this is English tan, but it comes in a few other shades of brown. And honestly, their leather is very well done. It is full grain, sustainably sourced. They also make matching wallets, AirPod holders, AirTag holders. And hey, if Apple's not gonna make them anymore, you still wanna have them at that same level of quality. They're also MagSafe compatible, which is very important to me. So the leather's great for dressing up your phone a bit, but they've also got the rugged case if you want something that you know is gonna survive any fall. Or maybe right now my favorite is the sport case. It's just really slim, super protective, carbon neutral. And I just love that Nomad has great taste in colors and the materials that they select. Like they put so much time and attention into everything that they sell that you know it's gonna be at the same level of quality as the phone that you're protecting. Okay, take their braided cables, for example. A lot of companies sell braided cables, but theirs are actually made with Kevlar. So it's incredibly robust. It's not gonna rip if you're like pulling too much tension on it. And they really reinforce the joints. This is where my cables tend to break. So you've got something way more secure that's gonna last you so much longer. And that's the end of the sponsored segment, but I really like Nomad. So I think you should check them out. Link is down below. There's these and so many other products that I really appreciate from them. Oh, and not to drag this out too long, but also check out their MagSafe stand. When you've got iOS 17 on your device and you rotate it sideways, it's like this perfect alarm clock vibe. So you have a big display on your desk. It's really cool. Anyway, thanks again. Link is down below. Now let's go on a quick tour of my home screen since it's changed a bit since last year. Usually I would have a large block for the date up top, but the social media landscape has changed a bit and I had to make a bit of extra room. So now the date is just in the corner and I've just got more apps in general. A lot of these haven't changed. Settings, Audible, Dropbox, 1Password, YouTube, my YouTube analytics. And by the way, I'm going through this really fast, but like I think about this stuff the most, just what is on my home screen and where is it placed. Apple Music, although they did just change their pricing, so I might take another look at Spotify. Duolingo, I've been learning Polish for the year. Let's see. I'm gonna be on my 286th day of taking Polish lessons.
Radio.
Radio.
Komputer.
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 Then we got the row of social, Threads, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Google Maps, VSCO. I'll talk more about editing apps, but VSCO is still what I use the most. Photos app, Safari, CapCut, Blackmagic camera, notes, regular camera, phone, messages, Overcast, the best podcast listening app, and Apple Mail. Now I know that was fast, so we'll go back and talk about some key points in a minute, but I want to point out that I think everybody should be thinking about the distance of the reach of their thumb. So everything in this bottom right corner is the most important to me. Or even if I'm trying to like make myself launch an app more often, I'll put it on the right. That's why I have TikTok here and Twitter over here. And then up in the far corner, I can't really reach this stuff. So just consider that, like how easy is it to navigate your phone with one hand? Also, I changed the way that I use this Fantastical widget. So instead of just showing the date, it's now a stack. So here I can see the month view and where we are within it. And then I can also see my upcoming reminders. If I swipe over here, I've got Siri suggested apps based on what I used recently and screen time. And on this side, I've got weather. This is a placeholder for the fact that it's usually Find My, showing me where my keys are. So I can just quickly launch my key location, the battery of all my devices, and the reminders app. And anything else I want to find, generally I just search for the app. And maybe my favorite new app I've been using is Flighty, which has done a great job of integrating the dynamic island and interactive widgets for your flight tracking. They just added an iPhone app. Great app all around just for tracking flights. Some other changes, CapCut. This is what I edit videos on when I'm on the go the most. I mean, more than Final Cut on the iPad, which, you know, might be surprising, but the tools are here and I use my phone more often than I use my iPad. I've also made a few videos talking about Spark Camera, which is a really quick, easy way to record. And I still use that one when I want to be really quick with an edit. I've also occasionally started to use RNI Films, which is a film emulation tool. They've been around for a long time, but I was kind of ignoring them. And then I just noticed they do a really nice job of adjusting colors. Like a clever detail is they have pre-warmth and post-warmth, which do affect an image differently. Like this actually means something and has an impact. Usually I'll want to affect pre-warmth more than post-warmth. But then in terms of just best apps, Lightroom Mobile probably does the best job of adjusting your images. It's just the same editing engine as on the computer. So for example, if you downloaded my Lightroom presets for the desktop, you can also use them on the mobile app. What I hadn't been using till recently is Capture One Mobile, because their desktop app is amazing. Like it's kind of the most professional photo editing app. But what's really interesting is that if you actually take the photos within the camera app on Capture One, it's using its own color science and you get different results than if you take that same photo as a raw photo with the Apple Camera app. Super interesting, and I like the way they do color a bit more. So definitely worth trying. Let's throw a few more in here. Luma is amazing. It does AI, meaning image scan. I don't know. It's moving so fast I can't even explain it. You just take a video and then it turns it into this crazy interactive animated world that is like fully in 3D with proper lighting and stuff. It just totally blows my mind. Download Luma AI. It's so fun. Similarly named, check out Lumu if you're looking for a light meter. Right now I'm in spot meter mode. Let's get out of that. And this is especially useful if you're shooting older film cameras that don't have a built-in light meter. By the way, I just got a new one. I tested my first roll on it and it turned out great. I'm excited to travel with it. Another helpful one is Splitwise. We were traveling with a friend and wanted to split all the bills, made it super easy, currency conversions, everything you need. And a fun one, AI emojis. You do have to pay to like do much with it, but you can just type in a command. So I could say Tim Cook wearing a backwards hat. Oh, and his hat's not backwards, but this one's kind of better. Tim Cook with a cowboy hat. I'm gonna add that. Now, before we're done, let's also talk about settings. Very important. As you can see, it's dark mode right now, but that's actually just because I usually use automatic so that it just switches between light and dark depending on the time of day. There's been some changes to the settings in camera apps, so worth checking out. The basics that I've gone over before, I set my defaults to 1080p at 30 frames per second. I turn on the grid, I turn on the level. That's a nice addition. Actually, one of the best new things on iPhone is when you're bouncing your phone from left to right, it can tell you what a straight line is. Very helpful. I turn off view outside the frame. For photographic styles, I actually just warm mine up a little bit, but that's a white balance preference. It doesn't make a huge difference. Main camera, you can now switch between 24, 28, and 35. I've turned off 35. I just find it to be more of a crop than I ever really want to use. So going between 24 and 28, I find it helpful. Make sure this stays on, portraits and photo mode. So when you're taking a normal photo, you will have the option of converting it to a portrait mode photo later. I love this. Brand new feature, and you can see the rest there. Okay, other new things. If we go into formats here, you can see that now photo mode has a choice between 12 megapixels and 24. I like quality. I'm gonna go with 24 and you can see the difference. It does look a bit better with this 48 megapixel sensor. But if you really value file size, I mean, 12 is still quite a bit, like it's lots. And in the end, both still look like a phone photo, you know? So if you're really running out of space, I think 12 is still okay to use. I turn on this ProRAW and resolution control. This is basically what lets you have that option while you are inside the camera to turn on RAW Max and ProRes RAW and all that stuff. Oh, and here, sorry, Apple ProRes. There's two settings for it. You know, I previously set my default to be the 48 megapixel version of RAW. I think I'm gonna change it to 12 just so I use it more often, because the images do look different when they're raw, like they sharpen differently, the colors respond differently. I'm just gonna go to 12 megapixels so the files aren't so big, and maybe I'll use RAW a little more often. And there's a lot more I could go through, but I've made other videos about how to set up your iPhone for the first time, so watch that, or watch the filmmaking one. There's so much going on in the Apple world this fall, so thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.